My name is Inez Medford, and I'm 27 years old. I was 5 when my parents drove me to my grandfather's house on a gloomy October afternoon, told me they'd be back once they figured a few things out, and then they never came back. Not for my birthdays. Not for Christmas. Not even once in the next 22 years. Grandpa Walter never let me feel like I'd been abandoned, though. He raised me in that old two-story house on Larkspur Lane like I was the reason the sun came up every morning. He taught me how to fix a leaky faucet, how to balance a checkbook, and how to stand up straight when somebody tried to make me feel small. Real talk, that lesson stuck with me. My sister, Delphine, stayed with our parents. She got the version of them I never did. Birthday parties, family vacations, a normal childhood. I got a lonely little girl's version of love from a widowed old man who always smelled like pipe tobacco and peppermint. Funny enough, I kinda think I got the better deal. Grandpa got sick 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that doesn't leave much room for hope or negotiation. I moved back into the house on Larkspur Lane to take care of him, sleeping in my childhood bedroom, making him soup, and reading the newspaper out loud, because his eyes had gotten too tired to focus on the print. During those last few months, he started talking differently. Quieter. More thoughtful. Like a man tying up loose ends he'd put off for way too long. Inez, he said one evening, his hand trembling as he set down his cup of tea. When I'm gone, there's something in my study you need to find. Don't let anybody rush you out of this house. Not even your mother. Especially not your mother. I had no clue what he meant. I just nodded and told him he wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. We both knew that was a lie. But sometimes people tell the lies they need just to make it through another day. He passed away on a Tuesday morning in March with my hand in his, and the birds just beginning to sing outside his window. I hadn't even finished crying before my phone started blowing up. My mother, Carol, was calling for the first time in 8 months. She didn't ask how I was holding up. She didn't ask about the funeral. The very first thing out of her mouth was, "We're coming to get the house ready to sell." They showed up 2 days later, my mother, my father Gordon, and Delphine, all pulling into the driveway like they'd never left. Like the last 2 decades had never happened. Delphine climbed out of the car first, walked right past me without so much as a hug, and headed inside like she was inspecting property she already owned. About 20 minutes later, I found her upstairs standing in what used to be my bedroom, slowly running her hand along the window frame. "This room gets better light than mine," she said, like we were hashing out a real estate deal, instead of standing inside the home of the man who had just passed away. "I think I'll take this one when we move in." I barely had time to respond before my mother appeared in the doorway, arms folded, wearing that same tight, unreadable expression she used to wear whenever I asked why she never called. "Inez," she said, her voice flat and all business, "pack your things. We're putting the house on the market by the end of the month, and you can't keep staying here rent-free while we deal with everything." I stood there in the hallway of the only place that had ever truly felt like home, listening to the woman who left me here at 5 years old tell me to pack my bags 22 years later. Less than 72 hours after we buried the only person who had actually raised me. Something inside my chest turned ice cold. It wasn't sadness. It was something a whole lot closer to clarity. Because Grandpa's words were still echoing in my head. Don't let anybody rush you out of this house. Not even your mother. Especially not your mother. So instead of arguing, instead of packing a single box, I turned and walked down the hallway toward his study. The one room he'd kept locked for as long as I could remember. None of us had ever been allowed inside. Not me. Not even Delphine during all those years she came to visit. It was completely off limits. I'd found the key 3 nights earlier, tucked inside the pages of Grandpa's old Bible, exactly where he'd told me it would be during one of our final conversations. My hand didn't shake as I slipped the key into the lock. Behind me, my mother's voice followed down the hallway, sharp with irritation, demanding to know what the heck I thought I was doing. I didn't answer. I turned the key. The lock clicked open with a sound that felt way louder than it should have. Almost like the house itself had been holding its breath for 22 years, waiting for this exact moment. I pushed the study door open. Behind me, I heard my mother's footsteps stop dead in the hallway. And just like that, everyone stopped smiling. The study smelled of old paper and cedar, untouched for years except by Grandpa Walter himself. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in thin golden stripes, stretching across his mahogany desk. Right in the middle sat a thick manila envelope with my name written across the front in Grandpa's familiar, shaky handwriting. Behind me, my mother brushed past Delphine and stepped into the doorway. Her face was tight, caught somewhere between confusion and anger. "Inez, what is this?" she demanded. "What are you doing in here?" I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands, and carefully broke the seal. Inside was a will. Not the same will my mother had already filed with the court 3 weeks earlier. The one that supposedly divided the house equally between her and her siblings. This was a newer one. It had been dated just 4 months ago. Properly notarized and signed with Grandpa's unmistakable signature. Clipped to the front was a letter addressed to me. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Then I started reading it out loud. Right there in front of all of them. Because deep down, I knew they needed to hear Grandpa's words, not mine. "Inez," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And your mother has probably already tried to sell this house right out from under you. I want you to know I saw everything. I saw her leave you here when you were 5 years old and never once look back. I saw her call only twice a year out of obligation, never because of love. I watched you grow into a better person than any of them. Not in spite of what they did, but because you refused to let it make you bitter. This house, the land, the savings account, every bit of it belongs to you. Not because you're my favorite, even though, kiddo, you are, but because you're the only one who truly earned it. Your mother, your father, and your sister received nothing. Not out of spite. Out of fairness. They made their choice 22 years ago. I'm simply honoring it." The room fell completely silent except for my mother's uneven breathing. Delphine's face lost every bit of color. The confidence she'd had just minutes earlier about claiming the bedroom with a better light disappeared in a heartbeat, replaced by something that looked a whole lot like panic. "That's not real," my mother said, her voice cracking. "That's not legal." He was sick. He wasn't thinking straight. He was thinking more clearly than anyone else in this house has for years. I replied. Even I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Steady, controlled, especially with my heart pounding. So hard it felt like it might jump right out of my chest. I handed her the will. I watched her eyes scan every page. I watched them stop on the notary seal. The witness signatures. The date. There was no way around it. Grandpa Walter had planned every bit of this for months. Quietly. Carefully. Deliberately. Just like he'd taught me to do everything else in life. My father, who'd barely said 10 words since they arrived, finally spoke from the hallway. His voice was tight with frustration. "So what?" he snapped. "You're really just gonna throw us out? Your own family?" Something about hearing the word family come out of his mouth, after everything that had happened, almost made me laugh. Almost. "You threw yourselves out 22 years ago," I said quietly. "I just watched Grandpa finish the job." My mother switched tactics. Her voice softened. She told me we could work something out. She said surely I didn't want to become the kind of person who left her own mother without a roof over her head. But I'd spent the last 2 years watching Grandpa die, one painful day at a time. I cooked his meals. I helped him bathe. I held his hand through the nights when he was too scared to fall asleep alone. Meanwhile, she'd sent exactly one flower arrangement and a sympathy card that simply read, "Thinking of you." Like I was some coworker recovering from surgery instead of the granddaughter caring for the man she'd all but forgotten. No way. I didn't owe her kindness. I didn't owe her forgiveness. Straight up, I didn't owe her a single thing. So I asked them to leave. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply spoke with the same quiet certainty Grandpa had always shown whenever life demanded a hard decision. Delphine walked out first. She brushed past me with tears filling her eyes. But they looked more like tears of frustration than grief. My father followed without saying another word. His jaw was clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. My mother stayed behind for just another moment. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something. Something that could somehow erase 22 years of silence and abandonment with a single sentence. Then she closed it again. Because there wasn't anything left to say. She turned around and walked out. A second later, I heard the front door shut behind her. Honestly, I hoped it would be the last time. I stood there alone in Grandpa's study, surrounded by shelves of books he'd collected over a lifetime. His old reading glasses were still resting on the desk exactly where he'd left them. For the first time since he passed away, I let myself cry. Not because I was overwhelmed with sadness. Because I finally felt something that had been missing for most of my life. Relief. Grandpa had seen me. All those years when nobody else bothered to notice. He saw me. He knew exactly who I was. He knew exactly what I'd endured. And he made absolutely sure that no one, no matter who they were, could ever take away what I'd earned. Sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't just a house, or land, or a savings account. Sometimes it's finally knowing that at least one person believed in you. When everyone else walked away, Grandpa Walter gave me all of those things. And in doing so, he gave me something even more valuable. Justice. If this story hit home or moved you even a little, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button right now. There are plenty more powerful family revenge stories waiting for you here on Revenge Unfolded. And trust me, you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next.